Hello there, my name is Anthony Barocas for StreamTech. Today, we've got a great conversation for anyone looking to start their journey into online media. We're going to talk with Tech Life Stephanie Humphrey, who started out basically as a rocket scientist, but yet today is a book publisher, blogger, speaker, and continues her broadcast journey. Let's bring her on now. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on today's conversation. I see you in many different places on social media, and you've got your tech tips and little video vignettes. How did you get started in? How did you even get started in media, I should say?
Man, it is a very convoluted story. Thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate it. So I was an engineer for 13 years for Lockheed Martin. That's what I went to school for, got a couple of degrees, and was working and I won't say perfectly happy because I wouldn't be here if I had been perfectly happy there. But
does that mean you're a rocket scientist?
Kinda. I mean, I didn't do actual rocket science, but I did work for NASA a couple summers in college. My scholarship, actually, I went to Florida A&M University on a full academic scholarship that was paid for by NASA. And so I got to work at Kennedy Space Center one summer, and then I worked at Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia another summer. But NASA just didn't pay a whole lot. So it was, I was like, I don't know about this. And it's so funny. The guy that was my mentor that summer I was in Langley ended up becoming an astronaut. And so now I'm friends with an astronaut. I can legitimately say I am friends with an astronaut because we're still friends to this day. And that was easily, I think it was 1992. 1992 that I worked there. And, I don't think he had even considered the space program at the time. His name is Leland Melvin. I don't think he had considered the space program at the time, but he ended up becoming an astronaut. And I was just like, and I saw him on television years later. And this is a total sidetrack at this point, but I don't know if you remember that show, Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He was on that show because Andrew was in Houston at Johnson Space Center eating the food that astronauts eat in space. And he was on the show. And I was just like, wait a minute. How is he on this show? He was never an astronaut. Leland's not an astronaut. And then I go Google him and find out he flew like 2 missions and, had a book out and just had this whole career outside of how I knew him, as an astronaut. So yeah, we reconnected. And when his book came out, I went to his book signing and we reconnected and just, we're like cool now. So I was like, yeah, I know some astronauts, I hang out with astronauts and stuff like that. So,
okay. So you're a rocket scientist, it's not rocket science, but you're handling it. And then what happens next?
A friend asks me to be in her fashion show. So I was working out in a gym. It wasn't really a gym. It was a woman's basement. And then that's a whole nother sidebar story because the woman was like 75 years old, but in better shape than anybody I had ever met in my life. But she was inviting some, women into her home to sort of train us, quote unquote. And one of the women that would come regularly worked at a Dress Barn, which is a retail clothing store. And she said, "Oh, come be in my fashion show. We'll put you in something cute, show you a little stomach off. And if you want anything, you can shop later on at the end of the show and we'll give you a discount on whatever you buy." And I was like, okay, well then shoot, I get to walk and look cute and buy some clothes, then I'm there, I'm help. So it really was a favor for a friend. That was my only motivation at the time. But there was a woman there that, in addition to sort of the regular people that my friend asked to be in the show, a woman who ran a school. So she basically taught like runway classes and it was like a modeling school, if you will. She brought some of her students to be in the show as well. And she and I got to talking after the show, and she's like, "Are you a professional model? Oh my God, you were great, yada, yada, yada." And I'm like, "No, I have a real job. What are you talking about? I don't do this kind of thing." And she's like, "You should think about it. You were really good." And I don't know if she was just trying to sell me runway classes, which I never took. But it was the seed. It planted a seed. And I'm like, what else might I be able to do as a side hustle? Because at the time, again, I was working full time. I had no intention on leaving my job, but I was like, I worked in a room with no windows in a cubicle behind a computer for 8 hours, 10 hours a day. So this would have been a nice little distraction from that. To go and do a gig every now and again, walk in a fashion show every now and again. That was
the monotony.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking about. But as I started sort of looking into it more, and understanding what else I could do, it became clear to me that, this is something I actually like doing. So let me see what else I can do in it, and just that was the ball. That was how the ball got rolling initially.
And then, okay, so now you're doing that and everything. How do you transition to? I mean, I see you a lot as the tech maven,
right?
And where did that come from?
So that was a very discreet point as well. So I had been doing, as you know, because we've worked together many times, when I play a pharmaceutical sales rep and all that stuff. And at that time, I was doing that. I was doing some print work as a model. I think I may have started reporting traffic for the local news here in Philadelphia. Yeah, I used to report traffic on TV. And but then I was working for a traffic startup in the Philadelphia area called Tango Traffic. So I was reporting traffic every day from 4 to 7 p.m. I was doing the afternoon drive every day. And I had a meeting with someone that I was hoping to make my mentor. He was at the time vice president of DEI at Comcast. And so I was hoping to meet him, and, he would see me and just be blown away and put me on TV somewhere. Cause, at that time, I was really thinking I was going to get into entertainment reporting. So I was doing a little bit of that, in addition to all the other, the business. You got to have a bunch of jobs. So in addition to all the stuff I was doing, with you, I was doing some entertainment reporting as well. And that's kind of where I thought I wanted to navigate this career. So that's what I went into his office with the intention of doing, is get me on, E or something. That's where I want to be. And, he took one look at me literally and was like, "What are you doing here? Why are you all dressed up like this? This is not who you are at all. You mentioned you were an engineer in passing and never talked about it again." He said, "That's what you need to be doing. Why aren't you doing that? I don't know anybody that looks like you that's doing that. You could be talking about technology." And I was just like literally, it was, and I really don't like the term light bulb moment. I don't know why. I just don't.
It's almost like cartoon. Somebody walked in with a big hammer, went wonk.
Really. And I could see the little light bulb, and literally I sat in his office and I said, "Oh, wow, I could be a tech life expert." He said, "There you go." And this was, 2011, maybe like January of 2011 is when I had that meeting. And so from there, just pivoted the brand completely and started working towards becoming the tech life Steph that you see before you today.
Well, when you say pivot the brand, what the brand meaning you?
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's not like we're talking about, there's this big company or whatever. It's basically just you. So when you say pivot the brand, and you take, obviously your career has taken many right angle turns. There is no straight and narrow.
Absolutely not.
Engineer, model, traffic. trying to segue that into entertainment reporting, and then tech life. How do you like, what do you pivot? I mean, when you say you're going to create this new brand and you pivot the brand, how do you do that? What is it that you pivot?
So I was looking at content, basically, to answer your question in a nutshell. You pivot your content. So I was looking at the time, if I was posting anything, I mean, social media was still fairly nascent back then. I think more people were blogging than being on social media. We were starting to see sort of the rise of bloggers, if you will, back at that time. And what I was doing, if I was posting anything on social media, it would be a picture from a tear from a magazine that I shot, or a catalog, or whatever. So it was all leaning in that sort of that media direction. But when I say pivot, I looked at the way that I thought that I wanted to sort of navigate my career as a tech expert was to eventually be on a national TV show, and ideally a morning show like a Today Show or Good Morning America, something like that. So I looked at all those people who got to be on TV as experts. When the new iPhone came out, who was on TV talking about that? It was usually like Lance Olenoff or Brian Tong, or somebody like that. So it was like, okay, what are those people doing? Or Mario Armstrong was really one of the people that I sort of modeled my career path after. And it was like, what do those people have in common? And typically, I don't think Mario was like this, but typically they were the writers for tech publications. So like, I believe Lance was writing for Mashable at the time, Brian Tong's the New York Times tech reporter. Like, so they had these very, concrete writing credits. So I was like, okay, so I need to write, and then somebody will invite me to come be on television. So I started my own blog. It was called A Matter of Life in Tech. And I was like, because I need people to see that I can write. So I started writing, and, once you start blogging, now brands want to send you stuff. Like, people would send me stuff. I would review it. Again, not a ton of video yet at this time. And if I had actually taken advantage, I think about it, if I had actually taken advantage of where YouTube was at the time, I could probably be Marquez Brownlee right now, total MKBHD, if I had gone that route. But I was very focused on, broadcast media as my platform. So I was like, let me write. And so I used my blog to pitch media outlets as a tech writer, as a tech journalist. I sent samples to everybody basically, and I ended up writing for The Root. I originated a column called Tech to Go on theroot.com, and I was writing for ebony.com, and just a whole bunch of random, I won't say random, a whole bunch of different publications, writing tech content for them. And then in 2012, towards the end of 20, so this was like a year and a half, year and some change of just hustling up my writing, and again, just trying to get myself out there as a tech person, and a tech reviewer and a tech journalist, and pivoting that brand, pivoting what people did know me for into the tech space, or I should say back into the tech space, because nobody knew I was an engineer. I mean, I really had to what makes you a tech expert?
You're just a model.
Yeah. Seriously, it was really like, I did a TED Talk. I did a TEDx back in 2022, was it 2022, 2023, 2022? And that is part of the story that I tell, is that I had to literally start from scratch and tell people, but no, I actually am, and I know what I'm talking about. I'm an engineer. Like, I got 2 engineering, and you don't want to have to lead with that and have that on your chest and throw the receipts down, but I had to do that a lot. And so by the end of 2012, I was at a party of all places. I was at a party, and Chanel Jones, who is now on the Today Show, she's on the 3rd hour of the Today Show with Al Roker and I forget the other guy's name, but she was the anchor at Fox 29 in Philadelphia for Good Day Philadelphia. She was one of the anchors there with Mike Jarek. And I saw her at this party and I'm just like, ooh, let me go talk to her. And funny enough, we had a past experience in common from when I did used to model. So I went and kind of said, do you remember when we did that fashion show together? And da 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 da. And she's like, yeah, oh my God, that was crazy. And she's like, what are you working on now? I said, well, I do tech now. She's like, oh, you're not a traffic reporter anymore? Like, even she didn't know really that I was doing this other thing and I had all this other, background. I was like, no, I'm doing tech now, blah, blah. I write for The Root and I write for Ebony and I write for yada, yada. She's like, oh, wow, I didn't know. She said, send me a pitch. I was on air 10 days later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you can do the best social media and blogging and everything hustle, but it's still, you got to
relationships.
You got to work the relationships and face to face.
Yeah, that's my opinion. I mean, I think today might be a little different. This day and age might be a little different because we do have that idea of virality, right? You can go viral and everyone in the world can know who you are from one post. So it's a little different now. I mean, you have to have sort of the chops to back that up if you do happen to go viral. But back then it wasn't like that. Again, social media was a thing, but it wasn't the thing yet. And so it still required you to, show some credentials, number one, and potentially have those relationships that could help you out. And I think it's still somewhat similar in the broadcast media space, which I think is why so many people are getting out of that space because, it hasn't become as democratized as the internet is. And that was where I wanted to be because that just is, I'm a little bit old school, Anthony. And I was just like, I want to be on television. I don't necessarily want to be on the internet right now. I want to be on TV. And that was kind of my goal. And, right or wrong, that was how I had to get there.
I think television or broadcast still has a different legitimacy to it.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
It's one thing to, and I have my own YouTube channel. Anybody can create their own YouTube channel. Anybody can create their own blog or whatever. But to be on broadcast, you have to be vetted by someone else.
Yep.
So it's this additional sort of approval process. And it's well, if you made it on the broadcast, then somebody else thought you were good, not just you.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And there are multiple gatekeepers in that process. And as you get on bigger platforms, local TV is one thing. I have a chance to bump into Chanel Jones at a party, but Good Morning America is something else entirely. You're not bumping into Robin Roberts at a party and she's going to put you on TV. So that was more, that required a different approach but I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not initially done the local stuff first.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone. It's like you do local broadcast. So how did you make it to that next step?
So I was doing Fox 29 and I started doing, it's funny. I would go on Haro. Are you familiar with Haro.com? Might be .org. I can't remember, but HARO. It stands for Help a Reporter Out. And people actually, so anybody watching it might be .org. I'm not sure if it's .org or .com, but if you Google Haro, Haro, it'll be the first thing that comes up. But it's called Help a Reporter Out. And people, reporters, producers, and writers that are looking for experts to contribute post on there. So it might be for a talk show, not a big talk show, but a little talk show that's still national or regional or something like that. Or it might be for an article in Good Housekeeping or, a publication like legitimate publications. People, the writers and the producers post there looking every day. It's just a daily thing. I looked at Haro every single day. And if there was a producer looking for a tech expert to talk about something, I was getting back to them. Yeah. So I was doing, different stuff. I was being quoted in articles here and getting on regional programs there and stuff like that. But then I actually ended up, and it was kind of a pivot to a certain degree. I took a job on with QVC because QVC is in this area as well. So I was the HP. I was the on-air rep for HP. I sold computers on television for 2 years, and just that really was practice. We talking about practice right now because it's live television. So you have to hit all your talking points. You got to be able to demo a piece of equipment, a device real time. And if it breaks, you got to know how to like play it off and bring the other backup device in. And so it was really good practice for live television, for the live television I wanted to do. And then what after about 2 years, I actually got a call from I'm trying to remember where I knew this woman from. I can't remember, but one of the producers from the Harry show, Harry Connick Jr., had a talk show for about 3 years back around 2015, 2016. I got a call from one of the producers, and they were like, "Hey, Steph." I think she matter of fact, I know exactly where I remember her from. It was from one of the gigs I got off of Haro. So I keep saying random, but they're never random. It was a talk show called The Security Brief with Paul Vialis. And I know you've never heard of it because I don't think anybody's ever heard of it. I think it was regional. I think it was like the southeastern United States. Everybody in the Southeast could see it. And I did a couple segments for him. And we were actually talking about, bringing me on as like a regular contributor or whatever, but then the show just didn't last that long. One of those producers remembered me, and she ended up working on the Harry show. And she's like, we're sitting here in our meeting, getting all of our experts together, our chef, our beauty expert, our this or that. And when we came to tech, you were the first person I thought of. We want you, we need you up here on the show. So that's how I got to that sort of national platform.
Well, QVC is national too, though.
Yeah, true. True.
I mean, because there's a big audience nationwide watching that station every day.
I've gotten stopped more for being recognized from QVC than from anything else, any other work I've ever done. Like any other work, and people still to this day, and I haven't been there since 2016, and people still, weren't you on QVC? Aren't you Stephanie Humphrey from QVC? Their customer base is fiercely loyal. Yeah.
Wow. So Harry Connick and everything. So it sounds like, to what was that movie? Glenn Ross, it's like always be selling.
Always. You just have to be open to the different opportunities that are in front of you. You know what I mean?
Always be closing. That was
always be closing. Yes. Like the QVC thing, actually, I was working there already. So I was a model for going back to the modeling stuff. I was a model for QVC first. Way back when I was still working full time as an engineer. I had started going out on auditions and go-sees and different stuff like that. And my agent would send me to QVC for those go-sees. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it because they never booked me for anything, literally. And my job was maybe 20 minutes, 15, some of your viewers may not know the geography of it, but I worked in King of Prussia, QVC's in Westchester. It was about 15, 20 minutes away. So I would actually sneak out of my job to go on these goes because they were always during the week and during the middle of the day. And so I would sneak out, go on these go-sees. There'd be like 100 girls there. So I'm waiting and I'm like, I got to get back to work, come on. And would never book any of them. Like they're all of their, so when you see the women on QVC that model the fashion, they work at QVC. There's like a sort of a standard roster of women. But when you see a beauty or a hair product, that vendor probably did a go-see to get some other women in because they're looking for a specific type. We need somebody with this kind of curly hair. We need somebody with this skin tone. So they look at the girls that are there, that the regulars, if you will, but They will typically do a go-see to get more different types of women to come in. So that's what my agent was sending me down for, all the beauty and hair ghosties. And I was not booking, and literally none of them. I don't know what it was. They were just like, we don't need her. We don't want her. She's not the one. There was one more ghostie, and I'll never forget. It was for prescriptives. They don't even have a line anymore. They were a cosmetics line called Prescriptives. And I told my agent, I was like, I can't keep going down. Like, first of all, I'm not trying to get fired from my real job as I'm sneaking out to go to these damn ghosties. And I was like, I can't. I was like, they're not booked. They don't like me. I was like, it's fine. I'm okay with never working at QVC. Like, you don't have to send me down there anymore. And she's like, Steph, just go to this last one. I promise. She was like, I don't know why they haven't hired you as one of their regular fashion models yet. You know, you're great. They should have you down. You should be working down there, yada, yada, yada. She was like, if you don't book this, I won't send you down there anymore. I said, fair enough. Went down there, did not book it. Did not book the gig. But the woman at QVC, her name was Kim Green at the time, who is in charge of all of the regular fashion models, was at that ghostie. I had never seen her at any of the other ghosties I had ever gone to, but she was at that ghostie, and she called my agent and said they wanted me to come and be a fashion model at QVC.
Oh, wow. So you sort of like went around and then you became a regular.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't book the gig, but became a regular model. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
Wow. So you've even with a long and storied career, today, you're basically still self-publishing.
Yeah. I'm still sort of a brand of one, and, kind of out here, honestly, making it up as I go along, for real. But I kind of prefer it that way. I mean, obviously, I was working under a freelance contract with ABC News when I was supporting Good Morning America and GMA3 and Strahan and Sarah and that whole thing. But I kind of like to retain my autonomy. And, had they offered me, a 6-figure contract, I wasn't going to turn that down. That did not happen. But, I realize I do like to sort of retain my autonomy and the idea that I get to try new things and come up with new, like, Till Death You Tweet, the book, like all of this stuff is just things that, I feel like are products, if you will, that I can put out there that can help people. So I like that I'm still able to have a lot of latitude to experiment with stuff.
So what does Stephanie Inc. look like today? You mentioned Till Death Do You Tweet. You mentioned the book. Like, how many different media are you in, and what are you doing in all these different media?
All of them. I mean, all of them. A lot of verticals going on. So, so in the media, I'll say in the broadcast media space, because that is a vertical, if you will. I still do, I still contribute to a variety of different platforms. I actually still do Fox 29 when I can. Cheddar. I would still do a GMA segment. They call every now and again. And then so, yeah, all right, I'll do the segment. I do some stuff for Scripps Networks now. They call. And I just got this gig. I will be doing some stuff. Dr. Phil is launching his own network on like next month, like August 2nd, I think it launches. So I'm going to be a regular contributor to the morning show that is going to be on that network. So I'll be a weekly contributor to their morning show. Mornings, I think it's going to be called Mornings on Merritt Street, something like that. But yeah, so I'll be doing that. So I'll kind of regularly be back in that broadcast space. I do regular radio segments on WURD in Philadelphia and WDAS in Philadelphia. And I actually contribute some content to Word as well. And then I am a professional speaker. Till Death Do You Tweet is my sort of signature seminar. It's a presentation that helps students become better digital citizens through responsible social media use. So we're fighting the cyberbullying. We're fighting, kids are still getting in a whole lot of trouble on social media these days. And we are still not doing the best job of helping them understand those consequences. when you're posting these things, and they're not going away, and you're going to see the effects of the things that you post immediately and 10 or 20 years from now. So I go into schools and I talk to kids. I talk to parents about the same thing. There's a version for professionals if y'all can get to smoke too, because grown folks don't do this so well on social media either. The book is sort of a companion piece. Don't let your digital footprint kick you in the butt is a companion piece to Till Death You Tweet, because I had school administrators asking for some sort of resource that they could have, that they could keep. I'm only one person. I can only be in one place at one time. And, once all the excitement of Tech Life stuff being at your school dies down, what are we going to do to continue these messages and these lessons? So the book is sort of made for that. So that's that. And then there's a course, an online course I have for parents as well. And I'm actually working on a software-based curriculum. So I'm looking into how I might be able to use AI to pull together a software-based curriculum for schools that I'd be able to license into schools. So I'm excited about that, actually. I'm hoping to have something ready to go by the end of the year on that. And then I'm a content creator. So, content is king still these days. So I don't do it as regularly as I probably should to keep the algorithms happy. But I do produce a 60-second tech break. I had done that literally weekly for like 2 years and kind of got burnt out a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But when I see content that I think is relevant, that I think people need to know and need to understand, tech content, keep it on brand. Consumer tech related content. I'll do a video. I usually, maybe a video a week, maybe a video every other week. But I do still do a lot of content around consumer technology topics as well.
And do you manage all your own social as well?
Yes, which is why I'm burnt out. It is. I have not yet gotten, and I don't know if that's just a function of me and my type A not feeling like anybody else can do it as well as I can. But I haven't found a team member yet that I don't know, that I feel like can do it and can be reliable and consistent with it. But I would love, listen, if anybody watching, does social and wants to get, some experience or something, an intern, something, but it is tough for me, I will say, to sort of let those reins go and delegate that to somebody. So, but I'm open. I'm definitely, I could definitely
I see that as a hard part too, because being in media, and I've written for a streaming media magazine for like 15 years, and it's sort of like to be able to say, okay, well, I'm just going to publish this, and then somebody else handles everything else, and I don't really have control over how it gets published or what it looks like or what images they pull or things like that. It's hard compared to like my own channel, where it's sort of like I make the thumbnail, I answer the questions, it's my voice, and then it continues to be my voice. It's not someone else's voice or an AI voice or anything like that. And that I think is almost kind of interesting today too, not to like change gears too much, but we make content about tech, but now the tech can make its own content.
I know. Scary, right? And it can start learning your voice. There are tools out there that, if you give it enough of your content, it can learn how to sound like you and produce that kind of content. So, it's an option when you're a team of one. I'm not going to lie, at least to get you started. I would never relegate the creation of my content to AI wholeheartedly. I would maybe use it as a starting point, but I'd still need to get in there and scrub it and edit it and, make sure that it really did sound like something I would say. But I mean, anymore, I don't know that I'm above using it as a tool to be a starting point.
I have used it. Like I did a video recently and I used it to Yes, I can do all the research about the background of this particular technology, but let me just ask, ChatGPT. And
Mm-hmm.
it threw together this, and then I asked it a couple follow-up questions, and then I had to go through and correct things that I knew were absolutely 100%
Right.
wrong. Like,
Right.
I don't even know where you got that because there's no website that I could think of that would have said this because it's 100% wrong.
Right. I know.
And
I know. And people don't really. It's unfortunate that people aren't really taking that time and that care. I think the AI train has left the station and everybody's jumping on it. And I think we're gonna, some folks are gonna get burned a little bit by not taking that time.
right. And I just saw a company that they have a spokesperson, and the spokesperson produced a new video about a particular product, and he used AI to do his likeness,
Hmm.
and he used AI to do the voice, which he's not a native English speaker, so all of a sudden his voice is just this Western
Oh, gee.
deep growl, and I'm like, okay, you've spent years working with people, and then all of a sudden you're going to publish a video that has somebody else's voice. It's
Right.
almost like breaking the trust and the relationship
Absolutely.
that you've built.
Absolutely. And his brand now is affected because what are you doing when you show up in person somewhere? Because that's the thing at the end of the day, unless you just never plan to leave the house and you're going to release these videos from your bat cave, you're going to have to eventually show up in person somewhere to do something. And what is that interaction going to look like? And how are you going to relate to your audience if you haven't really made that connection, or if, to your point, if you broke that connection with using these artificial tools? So
Yeah, I mean, like you said, what is that conversation? It's like, oh, wait, you are not a native English speaker, and so whose voice is on all your videos? Like,
right.
why are you doing that?
Why and
I
why? Yeah, decided you don't even need to do it, honestly.
so yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, but I think, like you said, there's jumping on the train before really knowing where it's going. I think
Hmm.
is I've used it, but of course, I use it to source, and then it filter it through me to what I produce, as
Yes.
opposed to me handing the reins over and saying, okay, AI, you write it, you put my face on it, you put a voice on it, and make me a video.
Well, and we've seen it already with, there was that attorney that submitted a brief that was written by ChatG, and like literally I think he got disbarred because it was completely incorrect and non-factual and nonsensical almost. So we were seeing it happen already, where people are really shooting themselves in the foot because they don't want to do the work anymore. I don't think these tools were ever meant to replace us necessarily. They were meant to replace tasks, maybe some tasks, but they're not meant to replace humans. And we need to be mindful of that and remember that.
So if you were you starting out, but today,
Ooh.
what would you advise someone like you saying, you know, Stephanie is awesome. I want to do what she does. I want to be Stephanie.
Whew. I don't even know if I would advise anybody to do this. Honestly, it's just like it's so interesting because you know kids, they did the study. More kids want to be quote unquote influencers and content creators than they do want to be astronauts. You know what I mean? Nobody would find the fact that I know an astronaut cool or impressive at all because they want to be content creators. So it's a very flooded and saturated market. Actually, Mr. Beast just he was I've read an article with him, and he said he was like, don't think you're gonna get this. Like it's just it's so the odds are the same as professional athletes at this point, and so I would say um figure out something that you actually love. That's the first part, because I think too many people jump around to whatever's trending in the content creation space. One day it's makeup, the next day everybody's doing quiet luxury, the next day everybody's doing whatever it is. I think younger people jump too much on trends as it relates to content creation. So I'm like, you got to find something that you actually like, because you're going to be slogging away with 10 followers for a long time before something pops off. But if there's something out there that you truly love to do and you want to tell people about it, get comfortable in front of a camera and just start. I mean, I think my path was even in this content creation space was very, non-traditional, because again, I was pursuing a different goal at the time. So, figure out a goal, figure out a plan. And that was the goal. So it was like all the rest of the stuff that I've done, is great. But the goal was always the goal. And it was national broadcast television. So everything I was doing was in support or, feeding into or informing that goal at the time. Now it's different since I've achieved that goal. We can now sort of look at what else we can do. You can start going horizontal, and look at breadth. But you do need to get a little bit narrow at first and figure out a goal and just go hard and be patient. Honestly,
yeah, I've watched a lot, especially starting my own channel. Like I've done different things, but this is one channel that I started in earnest specifically for this, and watching a lot of advice online, and including yours, and and it's like what you said, find something you like, like people would say, be very niche, don't chase trends and stuff like that. Don't try to be viral overnight and everything, but do your thing. And like my thing is I like doing live streaming and things like that. So that's my thing. And then also the idea that you have to like really pound away at it. I think that wave is kind of passed a little bit, because like Mr. Beast caught a wave, and he was in the right place at the right time with the right content. Whereas I think if he started to do that content today, it'd have a different reception. It's sort of like, you watch a comedy from the 80s and you watch it today, and it's like some of them don't hit the same way as they did then.
The jokes don't really land the same way they used to. Yeah.
It's like, you watch some, 80s TV, and I'm just like, wow, really? That was, yeah.
They were allowed to say that back then? You could never get away with that these days.
That's a no. Yeah, that's a no. Okay. So, I have people ask me, it's a lot of times, in streaming, they're like, what's the best camera? As if there's one best thing, and I think the same goes for what's the path that I need to follow.
And that's the thing, there is none. I tell people all the time, like, I wish I could tell you what I've done is not going to be what you do. And it's not going to be what the person next to you does. It's going to be completely different for everybody. I wish there was something I could bottle and sell and say, this is the way that you reach But there really isn't. It really is, which is good and bad. I mean, I think, bad in the sense that, you may never catch that wave you talked about, but good in a sense that everybody has a chance to. But you really just have to focus on the work and make sure it's something that you love.
Yeah, and you may not catch the wave, but there's plenty of other waves, I think, Yeah. That's why, like, when I see this stuff and they're like, well, just do your niche thing. Like my daughter, for a while, she really liked watching these videos where somebody would take these, foam figurines and make them into other foam figurines, usually anime, and then paint them and everything. And she'd be done, and I'd be like, wow, that's really cool. I would never think to do that. And I would never think that would be a viable YouTube channel, but she's got a following. She's got millions of viewers. She's got thousands of views per thing. And, so for a certain group of people, including my daughter, for a certain segment of time,
right,
that was
Listen, there's an audience for everything. My brother is an artist, and his current obsession is model trains. And he's just like, I'm going all in on the trains. He has a YouTube channel for his trains where he, because he gets the trains. Like, it's a thing, I guess, to like weather them realistically and, make your layout ultra hyper realistic and everything, and he does all of that by hand, and it's amazing. And but he has a little community, you know what I mean? It's not huge, but they're very loyal, and he's doing his thing with his trains, and in addition to his day job, obviously, but he wants to kind of become a train YouTuber. I'm like, okay, who knew model trains was a thing that people were into like that? But yeah, there's an audience and a community out there for whatever you want to do.
well, and like you said at the very beginning, companies will reach out to you because there are model train companies, and if they can find a channel that is hyper dedicated to reaching train enthusiasts,
Yep.
that's where they want to spend the money.
Absolutely. He has relationships with paint companies and, like different art supply like he does all that stuff. So it really is, and you have to understand too, kind of the why in all of this as well. Cause you may not get everybody can catch a wave, but everybody is not going to be a Mr. Beast. I mean, that's just not gonna that was lightning in a bottle, sort of a one-time thing. So, be okay with wherever you are in the moment. I mean, if you're looking to getting rich and going viral is different than creating content that because you love to create content. Like those are two different things. So if your motivation is I want to go viral and be the next, Jake Paul, that's a little bit different story than, I love this thing and I'm going to create a community around it and, grow a following and maybe make some money and do some brand deals and stuff like that. Like there's a difference. And I think that is where people get caught up, and that's where the disconnect is, because you're looking at, a Kardashian or whatever, and that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing, I don't think, as a creator, as being a creator necessarily, who's trying to build a community. To me, they're two different things.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. So my last question for you is, what's next for Stephanie Inc.?
Ooh, who knows? I mean, exactly. I mean, the great part is that it could be literally anything. I definitely try to stay in my lane. Like I said, I love tech. Consumer technology is my thing. So, I will continue to create content around that. Again, the new show on Dr. Phil's network is gonna be a good time. I could though see maybe, because the whole those who can do, those who can't teach kind of thing. I could definitely see eventually maybe getting into some sort of media training, and just helping people be better on camera, be more confident on camera, be better public speakers, something like that. I could see doing something like that. Maybe not full-time changing careers type deal, but maybe adding that to one of the verticals of what I do. But yeah, I just, I think there's another book in there somewhere, definitely, as well. And then possibly some, because I work with and am connected to some people that are doing a lot of stuff in the ethical tech space, ethical AI, ethical tech, trust and safety, that whole thing. I could definitely see, because of the work that I do with students with Till Death You Tweet, I could definitely see possibly getting more involved in that space in whatever way made sense. Maybe not necessarily as a head of trust and safety at a platform, or maybe, but something in that space to keep people safe online.
Yeah, I think that is going to be something that's very valuable in the future. And it's not something that, when you said it, it's like the first time I've heard of it, but it's something that makes absolute sense. Just like DEI. DEI didn't exist for many, many years, and now it's a critical part.
Yep.
And so trust and safety, especially in an AI generation where you don't really know where what you're seeing or hearing came from.
Yeah. Or if it's even real,
Right,
and it's just like, yeah. So I think I can definitely see me getting more involved in that space,
Interesting. Well, Stephanie, I thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation, finding out more about your journey to get to where you are. And, and even though we say it's just media, for some it's rocket science. And
a little bit.
little bit. But I think you've given so much useful information to those who are interested in trying this out and starting in this journey and, speaking from the other side, having achieved what that thing that you pinned up on the board is. And then it's like, well, okay, I achieved that. Now what do I do? Not a lot of people can speak from that point of view. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. So good to see you again. I'm so happy for all the work that you're doing as well. And thanks again for having me.
I think today's conversation is a wonderful example that your media journey may not be what you planned, but be sure to enjoy it along the way. My name is Anthony Brokus for Stream Tech. Thanks for watching.